Well, Mississippi officials decide a UK company can release more emissions into the air. Many people in the hospitality state are calling this another example of environmental injustice. Crystal Martin from the Greater Greener Gloster Project will join us today, and she's telling us more about what she has found out there. On Wednesday, the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality reversed its earlier decision and approve UK's based Drax request to request an increase emissions at its wood pellet plant in Gloster, Mississippi. It's located about 112 miles west of Hattiesburg. Well, people there in Gloster have long voiced concerns that allowing the wood plant to increase emissions would lead to higher levels of toxic emissions and greater health risks. The company has a documented history of environmental violations, and just 6 months ago, the MDEQ permit board took the rare step of denying the company's request to expand pollution levels. After Wednesday's decision, a group of Gloster residents have filed a federal lawsuit against Drax Biomass and its subsidiaries. The lawsuit alleges that the company's Amite bioenergy wood pellet facility has for nearly a decade unlawfully released massive amounts of toxic pollutants into its community, violating the Federal Clean Air Act and Mississippi law. Crystal Martin from the Greater Greener Gloster Project joins us right now here on the Roland Martin Unfiltered. Crystal, we want to welcome you back to the show. For those who do not know, can you start by explaining what exactly Drax does and what this plant in Gloster produces?
Yeah, so Drax they manufacture what's called wood pellets. These wood pellets are being manufactured in the U.S. South. They're only manufactured in the U.S. South. The wood pellets are manufactured here, and then they are shipped back to the U.K., where they use them as what they call a renewable source of energy, right? They use them for electricity. It's the manufacturing process that's harmful to health. It's harmful to our environment.
And tell us, what does it mean that Mississippi officials have now approved Drax's request to increase emissions?
Wow, that's unheard of. 6 months ago, we were there with MDEQ. They made the decision to deny the permit, and we're trying to figure out what happened. Did something drastic happen 6 months down the road that made them reverse their decision? I've been sharing with my community, one of the things that I've seen is Drax has definitely done a PR marketing stunt, and they've been making sure that they announce how much money they invested into the state of Mississippi. Like every day on social media, they have been announcing the amount of money they put into the state, the amount of money they put into Amite County, the amount of money that they've invested into, they say they invested into 20 nonprofits right in Gloster, Mississippi. And so to me, it's been a way to say, like it's a tactic they've been using to say, we've already bought this decision.
And tell us, do you know exactly what they're being allowed to release more of?
So we have VOCs, particulate matter, PM 2.5. There's formaldehyde, acrolein, methanol, different hazardous air pollutants. And those hazardous air pollutants are causing harm to our health. A lot of breathing issues, upper respiratory issues. People in our community have died from lung cancer. People are living with type 3 lung disease, black lungs. So these hazardous pollutants are causing a lot of health concerns.
Yes, ma'am. How did your organization, the Greater Greener Gloster Project, first get involved with this issue?
We got involved years ago when we first saw that Drax was fined $2.5 million for emitting hazardous air pollution. As a result, there were a number of people in the community who were complaining about upper respiratory issues. We started with my mom being admitted to the hospital on multiple occasions for breathing issues. And she was wondering, could this be the reason why she was in and out of the hospital? So we just started to connect the dots and do research. We started meeting with the EPA Region 4, being educated on what was happening in our community. They were teaching us about the VOCs and the PM 2.5. They taught us a lot about the hazardous air pollutants. And we learned how those different pollutants were causing dizziness, nosebleeds, upper respiratory issues. So again, we just started connecting the dots. And from one conversation to the next conversation, we started to organize. We wanted to ask questions. We wanted to educate our community. And we wanted people to really make the best informed decision about what was happening to them. There's one family in the community where 4 people died within a matter of 3 or 4 months. That's not normal. And when you're in a small community and the conversation every day is about who has COPD and who's taking nebulizers and who's having asthma, whose child is on a breathing machine, those conversations to me are not normal. And so we knew we needed to organize. We needed to make sure our community was aware of what's going on, and here we are today.
Let's bring in our panel. Again, Matt, Michael, Dr. Carr. Dr. Carr, let's start with you. What comes to your mind when you hear about folks in Mississippi being sick by these pollutants released in the air?
Well, it seems like same old story. Louisiana, Cancer Alley. We think about the work of Robert Bullard out of Texas Southern, environmental racism. This is what they do. And of course, now you combine that with capitalism, hard capitalism, make this money. You see the conflict. Dr. Martin and I've been sitting here enjoying this conversation between 2 SWAC sisters. I understand you are a 3-time graduate of Jackson State University. Not that you're going to hold that against her. Look, this is an Alcorn sister
Amen.
talking to you right now. So anyway,
Okay.
holding it down tonight. But
Girl.
Amen.
this is what I'm saying. Y'all Mississippi, I'm loving this conversation because it does speak to this thing. We're so familiar with this. This is what happens to us. But I ask you, Dr. Martin, this question. Looking at the things you all are seeking in court, and I don't know the whole bench of the Southern District of Mississippi, but I think there are a couple of black folk who are going to be who sit on that court. Hopefully you'll get favorable judges. One of the things was compensate residents for property damages and fund remediation efforts. Could you talk a little bit more about that? And also maybe about the fact that in a town with less than 1,000 people, are some of these people employed by the company, and are they trying to use that as a point of entry to kind of create a wedge in the community? Thank you.
So when you think about the property damage, we have daily dust in our community. I went into a meeting not too long ago, and there was a resident, a Caucasian resident, and she talked about she had to replace her roof because she had been incurring so much dust. But on top of dust all over the community, it's inside the people's homes right there. We also are seeing flooding from the holding ponds that's flooding one fence line community. And so for us, that's a nuisance. That's a problem. And if, you have to find whatever ways you can to attack this industry. And so if they are causing the people in the community to have to do upgrades to their homes, then that's property damage.
Yes, ma'am.
It lowers your property rate. Going back, thinking about the people who are employed, I've spoken to a number of people who used to work in that facility, and I was told they were hired through the temp agency.
Wow.
So how do you come to our community, a community of 80%, almost 80% Black people, and all you can offer us is an opportunity in that industry through the temp agency? That's a problem. Because they came to the community, promising good jobs, good paying jobs, but it's not a good paying job anytime you go through the temp agency and they take half of the money. On top of that, what about leadership opportunities in the industry? I would love to know if people who look like me have leadership opportunities in that industry.
Yes.
And I think they don't.
Thank you.
And another thing I can share, I think we saw this on their website. They employ about 60, maybe 70 employees, and about 10% come from Gloster.
Wow.
That's a problem.
Matt, when you hear this, how can residents in this community respond? Is there any legal action they could take?
Well, I was actually going to ask Dr. Martin that, because I know you said that there was a lawsuit. So is it a Title VI claim, or what are the basis of the claim? Having not read it, I'm not sure exactly how y'all brought it, but I know locally we've brought a Title VI claim, with HUD for some of the similar issues. And then the second question I wanted to ask you is a pretty basic one. I saw their press release, and it indicated that MDEQ reversed course, and it lauded the local Gloster leaders and all of that. So put simply, did they buy out local people and give them money and say, get on board? And that's why MDEQ reversed course? Because I suspect that's what it was, but I'd love to learn more about that if you would.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened. It seems like our local government sold us out. Because when we showed up to that hearing, there was so much division in that hearing. You can see on one side of the room, there were the residents from Gloster. On the other side of the room, I would assume those were the contractors. So one side of the room was majority black. It was all black, The other side of the room, there were all white men. There was the mayor sitting on the front row. And I think one day I looked up and saw the one of the town aldermen. And what was disheartening in all of that is when they made the announcement to reverse the decision, and it was no surprise to us. We kind of knew they were going to reverse that decision. But the mayor and his cronies, they rejoiced. They rejoiced in that decision. The people who elected the mayor, maybe his first time in office, were there, in the overflow. They were in the room, they were in the overflow. People felt some kind of way. That was hurtful. It's okay to be, have a difference in opinion in the matter, but to rejoice and celebrate, and people are losing their lives. Young children are crying, having, waking up at night, can't breathe. And this is not a matter to celebrate. I spent nearly 30 years working in higher education. My grandchildren live in Hoover, Alabama. But my heart is compassionate for the people in Gloster. And so I left my career to help my community. I heard the Lord say you have to go back to the land where your ancestors are buried. And you have to help the people. And so I'm there to help the people. I'm not fighting the local government. I'm fighting this issue against this big industry that's from the UK, that's in my community. My mother is ill, right? My neighbors are ill. My family members are ill. People are sick and suffering. And too many people have the same issue. So we are here to fight the industry. We are not trying to fight the local government. Today, somebody shared a clip, and the mayor said that the people are overweight. They smoke tobacco, and that's why they're sick.
But really, Michael, this connects to a larger environmental justice fight really all across the South. This is not just happening in this one part of Mississippi, correct?
Right. Yeah. This happens in communities with high African American populations all across the country. Dr. Greg Carr a few minutes ago mentioned Cancer Alley down in Louisiana, because we've talked about that here on this show before. But the question that I had for Dr. Martin is the Dogwood Alliance reported, the organization, the Dogwood Alliance, reported that Drax has already paid about $3 million in state fines for emissions violations. So do you know anything about that? And if so, over what period of time were these violations that these fines that they paid? And if that's the case, then what justification is the state using to allow them to increase emissions when they've already been fines? They've shown a pattern of violating state standards when it comes to emissions. Okay, and then just a quick follow-up to that. Has anybody asked the mayor? You said the mayor, who's African American, was elated and jumping for joy when this was granted to them. Has anybody asked him, "What are you so happy about?"
You know, somebody did tell me they sent him a text message, and so maybe they asked what was he happy about. I have not asked that question. But I wanna go back to you talking about Cancer Alley. We discovered about 5 or 6 years ago the $2.5 million fine. And again, that came out through an article in the local newspaper. And as we started to work with the EPA Region 4, we began to learn more that there were more violations. So before there was a $2.5 million fine, there was also a $100,000 fine. And then most recently in like 2023, there was a $225,000 fine. Now there are a whole lot of violations. Not all of them resulted in a fine. Some were for, emissions. They didn't report they didn't get their paperwork or whatever completed on time. So they have a number of violations, right? And as far back as I can tell, these violations started to occur maybe 1 to 2 years after operations. Now, if we work closely with the EPA, you talk about Cancer Alley, do you know what they shared with us? When we logged into the EJ screening tool, we learned that Gloster is the new Cancer Alley.
Jesus.
Wow.
We just happen to be a rural community in Mississippi, right? We're not in mainstream media. People are not talking about our issue, but we're the new Cancer Alley.
Well, we're talking about it, and I want you to let me know.
Exactly.
What's next for the Greater Greener Gloster Project, and what can we do to support you?
What's next is, we let Drax know we were not done fighting. We're going to continue to work with our attorneys. We were represented by Earth Justice, Mississippi Center for Justice, and ACLU. And they represented us on the permit side. But we also filed a lawsuit 2 days ago with being represented by Singleton and Shriver. And we're also working with attorney Ben Crump and the environmental law group Greg Cade out of Birmingham, Alabama. So there are more lawsuits being filed. And how you can help us, if you can show up to Gloster. We need people to show up in Gloster and help tell the story, to interview the residents, talk to the residents, let them tell their story.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.